So it is now 6:30 and I'll call the meeting to order. And I invite you to stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you very much. We will have all an opportunity to see the December meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, we just move on. Is there any correspondence?
There is. There's a thank you from Samaritan and a newspaper clipping from Star Review where Liverpool was included. He had a picture of us doing the test kit distribution.
John's got that. It's coming around. Are there any agenda changes before we move on? Hearing none, we have a report to staff of one of our new staff members, Daniel. Welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, you're right.
Now,
Where should I start? At the beginning. So just to cut out the question of where I'm from a lot of places. But I was born in Barranquilla, Colombia. Let's see, I have lived in Miami, Florida. I've lived in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I spent most of my time in grade school. After that, am I far enough that I get to take off and that's what I'm talking?
Hold a little bit that way.
there you go. Now jump up 3 times.
So I got my bachelor's in political science from Princeton University. I went to Syracuse University here, where I got my master's. And then after that, I in a few interesting places. I worked in a public library in Indianapolis, where digital reference services mostly did computer classes. So I've done, like digital basics for seniors. I've gone to nursing homes and taught seniors there. I've Word, Excel, that kind of stuff. And then I moved out to Colorado Springs, where I started doing even more technology stuff. I started doing makerspace activities. So I've done a lot of 3D printing, laser cutting, 3D modeling, photo editing, all kinds of wonderful technology programs. And after that, I worked at CU Boulder's College of Environmental Design. And but what was kind of interesting about most of those jobs is that I kind of picked the job first, just trying to further my career, and kind of moved out to where it was and took a leap. And after I kind of had enough experience, I started thinking about well, what do I really want to live though? Where do I want to go? That's for me, as opposed to just the job. So this is kind of the first time where I've chosen a place to sort of settle in first. So I moved to Liverpool just shortly before I was hired here, and since then it's just been really wonderful. All of my coworkers have been so welcoming and collaborative, and they have so many just amazing ideas. It's a very forward-thinking place. Just today I was in a meeting where we are talking about what's an innovation team. It's another innovation team where we are focusing on inclusion in many different respects, but mostly dealing with disabilities. So visibility impairment, hearing impairment, learning, difficulties and sensory processing and all this. We kept having all these ideas. What if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did that? And every time we had an idea, somebody said, "Oh, Maggie's already started working on something like that. Oh, Deanna's already working on something like that. Keith actually has that, so we should talk to him." And we couldn't come up with an idea that somebody wasn't already, taken and running with it. And so that to me really speaks to just how this is a library where people don't sit on their laurels, don't just take for granted what they've always been doing. And they're always just really excited to work together on something new and be on the frontier. So I'm very lucky and privileged to be.
Thank you so much. Board members, any questions you want to ask? Well,
Okay.
thank you very much. Financial report.
Mark Carter, claims auditor, Trustees, audited all claims and warrants from December 9th, 2021 through January 12th, 2022. Asking for those claims and warrants. The board has received the revenue status report and the budget status report through the end of December. Those are distributed electronically. From last month, there have been no changes in our revenues. For our expenditures, we're seeing a shortfall in our fees line, and that's mainly due to increase in costs. I've noticed an increase in costs in electric and gas bills. That's something that is beyond our control. So we may or may not see a shortfall in that line. The school district has reconciled bank statements through October 2021. Those were on hand for them to review them. They have been reconciled by the district and reviewed by the business office. That concludes the financial report.
And I see you're going to speak to us again as well. And I see that your document is making its way around and done. So
Thank you.
So I'll just need a motion to authorize the payment of. Second? We need seconds? Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. For the president's report, just a short thing. I did receive an email in the past 2 days from Don McLaughlin. We had heard, I forwarded to you his daughter's email, and Don wanted to be sure that you all knew how big this is. He's catching up with this. And I told him I would pass him how much he was missed by all of us. And I can't tell you, I'm not going to give you any details because I've covered up from Susan, but how excited I am about the pool pass. And my CAP staff is excited. The kids don't really know yet, but they're going to be excited. So we'll wait for Susan to give us a report on the pool pass. We'll move right to the director's report.
Okay. Before Susan fills you in on the pool pass, I want to bring the board up to speed on, what's been happening COVID-wise in the library. Sheila is the point person for any staff who feels they either are experiencing symptoms, possibly exposed, any of that kind of situation. So she then advises them on what they need to do when they can come back to work, that kind of thing. We are now following the Onondaga County 5-day quarantine flow chart here, which is actually, it looks a little complicated, but it's very helpful for us because it'll tell you what to do if you're, starts out with I am a close contact to a positive person, or I just tested positive, and it goes down into whether you're vaccinated, not vaccinated, and ultimately, what you end up doing. So after the holidays, we've had a few incidences, but luckily, the control staff has been wonderful as far as pivoting and changing schedules to cover if somebody's going to be out until they get their test results back, or if they're not feeling well and they have to do the whole quarantine period. Programming wise, it's kind of almost a program by program, day by day. We're trying to keep most of our in-person program going. Our programming for our toddlers, the 2 and under, have been suspended mostly because they're the ones that come in the library unmasked and also unvaccinated. And the kids that are 5 and under, some of the story times, they've moved to virtual. So they're still holding the programs, but they're done virtually. And in some cases, they're creating like a make and take bag, so the parents can come and get some activity or whatever that ties into what the program was instead of having to teach that. Any other programs, we are either splitting up or making sure that they're in space such as this room here where they can be socially distanced. We've been lucky that way, being able to keep a lot of that kind of stuff going, but we're assessing things all the time. So far so good. That's it about, and staff has been asked to wear the KN95 masks, especially when they're out working in the public on the main floors. And I put in my report that, to me, one of the great points of pride for me this last month was our partnership with the town of Salina in distributing test kits to town of Salina residents and KN95 masks. So we distributed 180 test kits. It gave us 4,000 masks. I don't know what we have left. We are still giving those out when people ask if we need permission. Yes, we still give those. That's that. I wanted to just briefly mention to the board, when Maggie was working with Russ Tarby on the CNY Arts Grant for the upcoming concert series, one of the new questions in the grant application was, please provide the organization's inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility statement, idea statement. And if we don't have a statement, what is our organization doing? What steps are we taking to take advantage of these principles? So we obviously have our mission statement, and we follow the AOA rights. We have a lot of documents that we point to in our policies. But I think as we move forward to update and tweak our strategic plan and also our discussion about rewording possibly our mission and our vision statement, that we may want to add to that set of documents an idea statement. And I will send you some background information so that moving forward we'll know what we want to include in that. But just briefly, it's an acronym for inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, highlighting efforts towards underserved communities by addressing structural inequities. Organizations that embrace IDEA are able to foster cultures that minimize bias and recognize and address systemic inequities, which they want to address create disadvantage for certain individuals or groups. So I think as we move forward, I would like to add this to some of the other tweaking that we're going to be doing with our strategic plan. So I mean, we have budget and some other things in front of us, but we'll put this on some future agendas. So I will send some backup documentation. I'm starting to see more and more of these at libraries. A lot of academic libraries already have these statements in place. Public okay, so now before I go to my OTPL report, I'm going to turn it over to Susan so she can get you up to date on our food tax, which is very exciting for the whole community.
Very exciting, and it's the culmination of over a year's worth of work and a lot of anxiety when it appeared we were hitting or about to hit a technical stoppage point. So as we discussed over the last year, we've been working on a virtual student library card that delivered to the Central School District. And we had an innovation team of staff members working on what they thought what the card should look like, what benefits it should give the students. Then we moved in some more into the nuts and bolts, worked on an MOU, had the school district look at it, had our attorney look at it. Katie created many documents. And then the last piece was actually testing the connections, and David got the program to work. But as part of the MOU, we had to sign an addendum that's required by New York State that ensured the data was encrypted at rest and in motion. So to do that, we had to work with OCPL. And ever since they were in the ransomware, their system is locked down very, very tightly.
And that's where we were hitting the stumbling block. And so for about a month, it looked a little iffy if we could do it because we had to sign that assurance from the school district. And we found that they found that working with the OCPL and county IT. So we are able to move forward, and we are going to be launching a pilot of this program at the Student Growth Complex. Thank you, Kay, for being our point person. And it's going to launch the week after February break. And already after a meeting that we had last week with Kay and Amanda Caldwell at the district, that very night, Joellen sent an email with all these ideas of how to continue the celebration here of this program. So just to remind you, it's a virtual card. Every student first piloted in these buildings will they won't have to get a physical card. If they already possess a physical card, that's fine. But this card will allow them, by using their lunch pin and their birth date as their password, will allow them to access all of our online databases, magazines, downloadables, and it will also allow them to come into the library if they show another form of ID and take out 3 physical items. And there's many libraries in the country that have already done this. They tend to be the larger systems. We are the first library in this county, and I think maybe somewhat greater central New York, to do this because there are a lot of moving pieces. So very lucky to work at Liverpool. We have people with expertise, and we also have a school district that's willing and wants to partner with us. Because the goal is we would like our resources to become integral to a student's academic success. Not, oh, here's my school library, and here's something over here that maybe I can visit and get to, where it's really seamless and a student feels like they are accessing the rich resources of both locations. And they can access many things through this card without even physically coming here, but we certainly hope that they do. So that is what the student library card, and after we launch the pilot and sort of assess how it went, technically, logistically, then we will move to the other buildings in the district. And so our future plans would be probably either prior to school starting or shortly after we would get the file from the school district. And just so the board knows, the big thing we have to be careful of is FERPA, not all we're getting from the school district is the student's name and their birth date and what building they are. So we are getting no protected information, nothing that violates any privacy rules. And that's something that, of course, we spent a lot of time investigating and worked with, obviously, our attorney in school and making sure we were upholding that. And so we would get the file, and then we probably then get another file shortly after January, just in case people have students who have come into the district or anyone's left, just to keep it as updated as possible. We're not getting students' email addresses, but we are in all our publicity letting them know if they provide that to us. Then, of course, they can put things on hold and get notified. They can maybe participate in some of our electronic newsletters. And we did realize that for the Google database, they're going to have to give us their email because of the way Google times it. So we are really excited to launch this and see where it takes us and the possibilities, and just really the benefit of this partnership that we have with schools really. So we will keep everyone updated and look forward to February.
Susan, I have this vision of you on a whiteboard. Because you have led the charge on this and really even the hurdles presented themselves. That's all I know.
Well, it was, I think honestly the pandemic, because this has been talked about for many years and there's always been some kind of stumbling block. And we have leadership and staff here at the library that said, we're not going to look at the past stumbling blocks anymore. We're going to forge forward. And then I think with the pandemic, it even heightened the need for students to have access.
And we also recognize that many students, it's very hard sometimes to come physically here. So our staff was really willing to let go, like sometimes some libraries go, oh, what if a student needs 2 cards? They have a physical card and a virtual card, that's horrible. Our staff was like, we don't care about that anymore. And then certainly letting go of fines is another barrier. So it just really came together at the right time. So we're really excited. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that more technical issues.
And I think as Susan mentioned, the important thing to remember is that the huge barriers being removed for a lot of students in the district that for whatever reason, you might not be able to get to the library. Or get to the library with a caregiver or parent who's going to, get them here or sign them up for a library card. This is a way for them to still access materials without that.
And even beyond that, I see that we're creating lifelong learners, that the library should be able to be part of it. And as a child, and as a teenager, which is, that's what we hope.
Kudos to Martina.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Katie will be working with the school district to make sure we have a lot of joint publicity.
And Katie, we'll try to give you access to the building with Megan that we photo ops, and COVID restrictions being what they are, we'll have to wait till things change momentarily. So, but that'd be great if you could come.
And I think this February 7th school board meeting, we're going to be discussing it.
The first Monday in February. No? Yeah, is it the 7th? Yeah. And we are planning on going to the now.
I'll be there.
How many board members? It will be a very, very small section. We're doing humanities update, and it's a 20-minute report, and we will be a small portion of that. We'd like to go because we are a school district library, and this is such a big collaborative project. Assuming the meetings are still open. It's always a tradition. Yeah. So Martina, maybe we will send an email out the week before, just telling the board that if you'd like to attend and where it is and the time.
We have to let them know ahead of time.
I've only been watching them virtually, so I can't tell you that. We will find out.
Okay.
The director's report was chock full, is there anything?
Yes, I just have a couple of things from OCPL. Speaking of collaboration, I put this under OCPL. Liverpool was instrumental a few years back in working with the Onondaga County Parks Department in developing the Explore Outdoors Pass, another pass. And that allows patrons to check out passes and get into the county parks at charge admission using the pass. So free admission to the zoo, Beaver Lake, and in the summer, the beaches, Niagara Shores, James Falls. And we are the pass-through. The county has 2 passes for every member library in the county, as well as central and all the branches. So a total of, I think, 60 passes go out to these libraries to circulate. And just as I'm bringing this up because just this past week, the parks brought us the 2022 passes. So Katie Jensen and her department distributed them this week. So all these libraries will have up-to-date new passes for the parks. So I'm very happy that is still going on. It's got to be about 5, 6 years we've been doing it. So provides access to the parks for people. And then just quickly, the Lafayette Public Library finally hired a director, Jessica Rice. She comes to Lafayette most previously from the SU Preservation Studio at Wood Library, but also has other local library experiences.
Have some items for action discussion. A surplus list. So, I'm sorry,
For kind of thing, there are no personnel changes.
have that in our email. So, we're a motion to accept the surplus list. Thank you, Denise. Second? I'll second. Any discussion on this surplus list? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor to accept the surplus list, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Our next one is adopting the board policies for second reading. I will approve. This is a policy about policies.
I know, great.
No, it's important. So I need a motion to accept the adopting the board policies policy. Thank you, Yvette. Second? Thank you, Dennis. Any discussion about this? It's a second reading. Hearing none, I'll vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next one is the borrower card policy. It's our second reading of this. For a motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this policy? Hearing none, call the vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Our next one is the records retention policy. And I'm looking for a motion. Thank you. Denise. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. In front of you, we should have our Sarah paper copy of the audit. We heard him in November discuss this and have the opportunity to ask questions at that point. Glenna will be expecting a book report from each of you.
Like stand reading.
We have actually have been through all this. This is your copy, which will go with your binder with all of your policies. And we do need a recommendation to accept this audit now that it's in print for us. Thank you. Second? Thank you, Dennis. Looking at the audit, do you have any discussion, questions? And again, we've had this for 2 months, so. So nothing, we'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? We have accepted the audit from Zero. Okay. We have our deducted budget as our first draft. Take a look at this, and as you know, we usually take a look at this and we do our very best to examine budget and look at it very closely. Still, I'd like to guide us through this.
Difference between last year's budget lines and this year's budget lines. Most of the lines have just been held and steady. There are a few lines that are slightly increased due to increasing costs this year. The main computer hardware line was dropped back to 2 years ago, and that was due to the phone system that's being put in place this year. So the computer hardware line has decreased significantly. The other factors are our revenues are going to be shorter due to the decision to eliminate fees and fines. And then personnel services. We have minimum wage and compression issues that need to be addressed, and those were previously discussed. And those are the main factors in this budget. Do you have any questions? Can you answer them? Yeah, half was at 2.3 with, next dollar of 95,000. I do have to make a calculation, got that today.
The latest terms, give us what that means.
So the next dollar increase, the bottom line would be $95,665.
We're looking at, if you look down at the bottom line there as a board, thoughts that you have.
The bottom line currently is $121,000 increase.
Thoughts from the board. It's a lot to digest. I think one of the reasons we look at it, and then we look at it again, and then we look at it a third time, is to really be able to scrutinize what we're looking at carefully.
And this budget was prepared before the property tax calculation today.
Correct. So you're going back to country numbers. Your comments or anything, we look forward to your next edition.
Any suggestions?
Like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. If anybody has any concerns, suggestions here, where she's gonna find that extra.
The revenue shortfall was partly because of the fine, changing fine. What was the amount we two years ago?
In 2019, it was 47,000. They dropped to 40,000 in 2019, 2020, and now they're down to 15,000. You're welcome.
What rentals are under the operations and maintenance?
That would be our copier rentals and our printer maintenance agreements. And there was quite a large savings 2 years ago, but those may increase this next fiscal year.
Experience the recent inflation. That's what we're trying to keep in mind too going forward. Regular 7% increase inflation experience so far. So all stuff, conversations that we have to have, affecting everything. The library's purchasing too, prices of everything is going up as it moves out to our protection. Any cash goes out to fill the gas for the van, that amount is going up. All things.
Any questions? Well, lots of food for thought. We appreciate all your behind the scenes work and look forward to the next edition. So, thank you. Open forum, and right here we have Karen. We have you on our open forum. And then, Karen, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and perhaps you met last month. I was not here. We did that everyone last month? Correct.
I'm here to let you know how disappointed
our board and of course are with regards to not being allowed to have rehearsals here. It's apparent to me that over our 42-year tenure with you, that whoever's ever on the board during those years decided to put into effect from your board policy that exceptions may be granted by the Board of Trustees with regards to meeting room use per month. It seems to me that even if that has been your policy all these years, there was always an exception made for Liverpool Community Chorus. We have many members who are very upset. We have a board and a director who's very upset. We had a meeting just Monday with some of the library people, and a couple of my fellow board members felt, I don't even know the word to put it, they were upset with how they were treated. And they could put more to that than I can. I just think it's a real shame that after 42 years, with this policy in place, that you're not willing to make an exception to us again. It's apparent to me that the director of this library at the time and the board decided to make exceptions to Liverpool Community Chorus. We are your community chorus. It was started with this sesquicentennial in this village. And I just want you to know that, yes, we might have to find a new home, but that is not going to be an easy job. We need a place that gives us good lighting. We need a place that has a piano that can be close enough to the director that they can see each other and communicate what's going on with a rehearsal. We need a place that has good acoustics, that we can hear our other voices in the room to help our balance and to help how we're hearing each other and how we are connecting with the parts and how they're intermixing. Some of the lists that we were given of the places that we could try, we have done before and have found that lighting was an issue. Acoustics were an issue. Where the piano was an issue because some places won't let you move them. It's home to the Liverpool Community Chorus. And the board members and the chorus members feel that they are being kicked out and denied the place they have been in for 42 years. I'd like to thank the board for giving us the opportunity to speak to you and to let you know also that I have some board members and chorus members who are going to be taking this possibly to the public through very public forums. And I'm just giving you the heads up. We're just very disappointed that this is what has come to pass. We've had a partnership with you guys for 42 years. Giving you funds, giving you a piano to use, making sure that if you were doing a benefit, we supported it and got involved in it. And this is how we're being treated. And we're very sad and disappointed. And that's all I can say. Thank you.
Karen, I have a quick question. When we tried to get a hold of you or some member of the board group, we had difficulty getting through. Is there a best way to communicate with the Liverpool Community Chorus?
You can always get us at our Gmail, lcc30years@gmail.com. That is really the best way to get a hold of us. The phone that we use is usually used for people that want reservations or tickets or whatever. And I hate doing business that way because we don't always remember to access that phone number. But I look at that Gmail every single day.
Tell me one more time, I missed it.
Okay, lcc30years@gmail.com. We're looking for some new members if you want to join.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks for your time.
Yep. Okay, next on our agenda, we have board forum.
vote here, just so I'm not.
Are you,
Excuse me,
are you the lawyer?
I'm not.
Oh, you're just a lawyer. I don't mean to say that, but you're a board member. I mean, they were talking about the lawyer, and I thought, well, maybe he's at the board meeting, so. Okay, you're a board member, not just a board member.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Karen,
Yes.
thank you for your words.
Okay.
Okay. I want you to know that whatever comes before the board, I take very seriously. Okay, I give it a lot of thought, and that's the situation. I'm going to make a motion to deny the request of the Liverpool Community Groups for the exception, to make an exception to our room use policy. And I will tell you my thoughts on that. It's a great deal of reflection on information that's given to me. So I don't know when the time is to make a motion. Make it now or
Why don't you make it now, and we, as protocol gives, we'll discuss it next week.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the request by the Liverpool Community Chorus for an exception to our room use policy.
For a second. And now it's a discussion.
So, first of all, last month at our meeting, I was given a folder of information. It was mostly contained correspondence from the Liverpool Community Chorus. It had our room use policy, just basic information on the request. And so I thank the staff for putting this together. I appreciate that. And also, 3 members of the Liverpool Community Chorus came up and spoke. You were one of them, right? And all 3 of you spoke very eloquently, passionately about the course, and I appreciate that. It's part of.
Can I ask you just to pause for a second?
Yes.
Karen, are you recording this?
Well, I thought I could take it back to our board. That's all right, I can stop.
No. If you are recording, I just want to make sure that John.
Well, I just want them to know that it's been denied.
But we usually ask permission before you record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
John, I didn't think you were aware of that, so John.
I was aware.
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Would you?
I just
Well,
want
this meeting is being recorded anyways.
We have recorded the meeting.
It'll be available to
Okay.
as well. I also went to the staff of the library, people involved with the room reservations, not specifically about the Liverpool Community Chorus, but just to understand the process of reserving a room, how it works when groups, organizations come to them, and so I just wanted to understand that better. Gather information. And so there are 2 things that really I think about this your request, of course, the request for this exception to the policy, which is really kind of distilled down to, and that is first. So Kay and I joined the board approximately 6 years ago. There were a lot of other board members that didn't know about that. And there was a general discussion among the board, general observation, that in the last 10 to 15 years, the library had been evolving. It had been evolving from a traditional library, as we think of it, to a library and a community center. As a community resource, that continues to this day. It has become more and more a community resource. And that discussion and observation continues to this day. And so the second thing is the room use policy, the thing that we're discussing. Room use policy has been in place for a long time. This is not something that we created recently. It predates my time and Kay's time on board. We're the longest serving members of the current board. So nobody on this board has anything to do with this policy. It's been in place for a long time. And given this discussion that we overheard periodically, and this room use policy that was set up predates our meeting here, I have to believe that the board at that time when we created the policy was anticipating a time when the demand for the room was going to outpace what we had available. So that's kind of where I'm going here. Is we're at that point now where we're trying to be fair to everybody, and so it's not a rejection of my asking for this, but there are two, as I see it, there are two problems. Okay, if we were to grant the exception, there are two problems with it. The first problem is, as an organization, as the board of trustees and as the library itself, how do we decide which groups of organizations get preferential treatment? Also,
I thought of that.
so that's
I really think that exception piece should come out of policy.
that's possible. That's a possibility.
I mean, really, if you want to stick to that policy of 1 day a month and all that, I think exceptions should be, period. That's how I feel. As president of our board, that's what I would do if I were president of our board and there was something in there that could be kind of a problem, an issue. And I think that exception piece is an issue as far as we are concerned. Because we're like, why aren't they giving us an exception? And I understand exactly where you're coming from. To give us an exception, and who else do you give an exception to? And how do you make that decision? And I understand that. I think maybe that exception part of that policy needs to come out. So that then it's cut and dry. There's no exception. That's it. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. The related to what you were saying, related to what I was just saying, the second problem is the same problem. That is, who do we decide not to give? So it's a double-edged sword. You know,
I understand. I thought of that too.
Yeah, there's no, it's not a win. There's no winning here. And so that's the reason why that I've asked for this request. Make a motion for that. I'd be interested to hear from any other trustees that have additional input. But I just wanted to explain where I was coming from. We're trying to be fair to everyone, and I can tell you that I spoke to the staff, as I mentioned earlier, that are involved in reserving rooms, and I believe they do a very good job. And I think they have the best interests of our patrons and patron organizations in mind when they try to help them out. And I appreciate everything that they do.
I wish we could do once a month. That's not conducive to a course.
Yeah, I'm sorry that it can't work out. At least from my perspective, maybe we'll hear from other trustees and see what they
I understand where you're coming from, but I also have course members who've been in it for a long time, and they're thinking that because we've been with you for 22 years, that should be the precedent that we continue. But I understand also where you're coming from. I see both sides of the coin, so to speak, and I understand.
And John, do you have any concluding statements? Technically, in this part of our meeting, it's a discussion review and the board. And I know we're being sensitive, and Karen, we want to hear what you have to say, but technically with Robert's rules, we do have to kind of restrict the comments to the board at this point. So do you have any conclusion that you want to bring to, or you?
So my conclusion is that for any organization coming to us looking for an exception to the policy, I'm going to have to say no to them. So that's essentially, and unfortunately, that includes the Liverpool Community Groups. So that's what it is. Thank you.
Other board members, do you have comments, things that you'd like to say? Sure. Last we heard some other board members from the Liverpool Community Groups. Hearing none, we will call the vote. Board members we can do a roll call, or we can do a general vote. If you're comfortable, I will do a general vote. Or if I hear from any board member they'd like to do a roll call, we can do a roll call. Okay, we'll do a general vote.
Can I have just one clarification? There were alternate dates, but they were not. I think that was what I wanted to make sure.
Can I ask you, I know you're not a member of the board, but you were, you were also at the meeting.
Susan was in the meeting.
Can you tell us what, to answer her question?
Yes. The alternate dates and times were not acceptable for various reasons. They felt Sunday was unacceptable because that is family time. They want Tuesday. They felt Friday was not acceptable because some of his work. And since we could not offer every Tuesday consecutively, they found our proposal unacceptable.
Reiterate the most it's a weird one, right?
Okay, clear.
Yeah, it's clear about like what, so everyone is on the same page, what it means to go. So the proposal on the table is deny the exception. So if you vote yes, that means we're denying the exception. If you vote no, do not deny the exception. What, correct? Correct. I just, it's a weird double negative.
Say it again, I'm clear.
So I just wanted to make sure everyone would.
So a yes vote means you support John's motion of denying the request.
Okay, all those in favor of John's motion, which I will not read that, but we have in a minute, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries the exception. Karen, before you leave, have the opportunity to read a co-sponsor agreement, what that would mean.
I'm getting old and hard of hearing, and some of your voices are very.
It's a co-sponsor agreement. I know Maggie has offered it in the past. For board members, if you're not familiar with co-sponsor agreement, Glenna, can you just briefly tell them what co-sponsor agreement is?
Yeah, I think Maggie went over some stuff with you, but if you co-sponsor.
I didn't see this.
Well, I don't know how far you got.
That's
with it,
okay.
but I think back in.
She just kept going back to the policy, the policy.
Right, it's just an opportunity.
And I
for
get that.
The organization and the library together sponsor a program But there's certain requirements for that to happen, which includes open doors, being open to the public, allowing anybody in. But it would also allow you to have the room more regularly, and we would support promoting the program, the chorus practices in our program, and that type of thing. So.
Well, I'll take it to my board.
Okay, and I think, again, I would reach out, if they have specific questions about that type of arrangement, I would have you or them talk to Maggie, because she could best explain all the ins.
She's in charge of programming, I understand.
Yeah.
And I don't begrudge her her job. I mean, I think that she's trying to stick to your policies, and I do understand that, because she and I have gone round and round at least 3 times. And I've done this work for about 5 or 6 meetings, and it's just round and round and round. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I get it, but I have board members, chorus members, who really don't care to get it.
I know,
and that makes me sad too, that they don't understand. So we're in the process of looking for a new place, and we're hoping that this place works out. We did do 2 rehearsals there, and it was a good building, a good place for us. So we're hoping that and it's in the Liverpool district. It's at one of their schools, and we're hoping that we can work it out so that we can be there every week. We really meet every week, so and that's just because of who we are and what we do. But I thank you for your time and matter. I absolutely understand where you're coming from with as far as exceptions. If it were me and it was my policy, I'd get that sentence out of there. I really would, because it just leads you to believe that you even get the exception. And if you don't have it in there, then it's not a question, ever. You know what I mean? So that's my opinion, and that's what it's worth. But I want to thank you all for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, that's our agenda. We actually do not meet. And so that brings us to our last agenda item, which is adjournment. It is now
Is there any new business?
What do we see? State business that we need to discuss.
I just remind everyone that it's 2022, and so the new law about trustee education went into effect. The law about trustee education, so you're required to do 2 hours of continuing education as well a year. And so I think the things with Terry, Nichols, Scouts, so I would just encourage everyone to take some of those or one of the other.
What will happen with the, those are recorded.
Yeah, but I think we wanted to get the
Right. But what I'm thinking is, would it be possible for us to do a pre-dinner meeting and have dinner together and do a video together?
Watching them recorded doesn't help.
I find out.
They're not gonna send you a certificate.
Right.
So you have to register, and then you'll get something.
Yeah, you don't have to sit through the live sessions, but then you can watch.
Yeah. Yep. I just wasn't sure because I know I don't know the highlighted different sessions, live sessions that you go.
Yeah.
Before you do that, I don't have that. I will.
Or we'll have Ashley do it. Is she going to do it?
I don't think it's any of the area.
So,
No one.
let's explore that possibility.
Okay.
Maybe we could do a dinner meeting and, that'd be kind of fun to do. Maybe without COVID.
We're on Tuesdays.
Tuesday afternoons, once a month.
That's fun.
Back to first Thursday.
That would be. Can I adjourn the meeting now? It is now 7:29, and the meeting is adjourned.